Howdy folks, and welcome to a brand new Ships of the Line. This is a bit of an emergency, but this is also a looking into the upcoming expansion for Star Trek Online. Howdy folks, and welcome to a brand new episode of Star Trek Ships of the Line. This is a special look into Agents of Yesterday, a brand new expansion for Star Trek Online. This will be covering about the ship and the sequential episodes or missions that you get to be going through. But today, since this is a Ships of the Line, we'll be looking into the ship that be in. So this is the ship. Now, if anyone has been looking through the development blogs, will understand that Agents of Yesterday will be dealing in the 23rd century ships, more specifically in 2270. Now, that was the end of the original series, including its anime series, as they have mentioned in the anime series that the year when they ended was about 2270. So, okay. Now, this is the ship that you'll be starting out in. There's not really much to say about this ship, other than this is actually pretty interesting. We already see some aspects that actually is being used for the later ships in this series. So, what is this ship? Well, this ship is a Pioneer class frigate, or at least so it says in Battle Tactics for the gameplay and when you look at individual ships, but it's a Pioneer class utility craft. Let me go ahead and get out of the open up the HUD, and you can see it's a utility cruiser or craft. So it is a cruiser, but it's also a frigate. And a light frigate or a light cruiser is considered a frigate. But there's a lot of differences. Like a lot. So, yeah. So, what about the ship specifically? Well, it's your Tier 1 vessel. This is what you actually start in when you start the game. And I like it, you know. The spinning Bassard collectors, you know, all the lights, the shape. You know, at first I didn't really like it, but I grew to like it, you know, I really did. And I like the design that the game developers has actually gone for, even though I do question it. But nonetheless, it is actually pretty good. So let's take a look at how the ship is in total. Well, first and foremost, if you actually want to know whether this ship is actually canon, I have a copy of the Starfleet Technical Manual, which was pretty much given full credit, or should I say full approval, by Paramount Studios to go and consolidate all the data that is available and publish it, which gave money to Gene Roddenberry to eventually create the motion picture for Star Trek. And this is actually pretty cool. Now, just to let you know, the Pioneer class doesn't exist in this book. But then again, this book was made when after the original series and the anime series would have been over with. So yeah. And you want to know specifically, the book is in full title Star Trek Starfleet Technical Manual. It has full illustrations. Training Command Starfleet Academy. Research and compiled by Franz Joseph. So there you go. And I could read through this at a later point, but yeah. So, specifically of ships, what's available for registries? Well, when you start out in this ship, yeah, there's another Pioneer class. When you start in this ship, you start out with a random registry number anywhere between 1,000 and pretty much, I would say, 1,999, okay? 1999. pretty much. You can't go 2000 because that's already declared for the USS Excalibur. I'm sorry, Excelsior. Guy being a dick. So, yeah. Trying to be silly. Right, so we have this going on. It's interesting. Now, when you start out in the series, starting out in the mission, after you create your character, during the cutscene, you'll see NCC 1500. That means this is registry number 1500. This is important to note because in the technical manual that I have, there is no starship that has that registry number that's in this book. And technically, the dreadnoughts for the Starfleet is actually beyond 2000. Not kidding. The USS Federation, which if I were to carefully flip through this nice and old book, here's the ships. If I were to find it, because the 1000s was for the part of the heavy cruisers. So 1500. I mean, if I could find Pioneer, which is not part of the heavy cruisers Mark 9B, because it's not there. I'm looking right at it, guys. Just calm down. Let's see here. Nope. I mean, oh yeah, USS Jupiter, NCC 1734. Yeah, Jupiter class and the USS Jupiter. That's what it originally was. Let's see here. Okay, nope. All right. Well, what about the others? No, not the Constellation 2, Farragut 2, Intrepid 2, or Valiant 2. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. The registry numbers for these ships were had a specific numbering system, which was specific for what type of vessel it is. So that way you can read on the registries exactly what it's supposed to be for. Yeah, I mean, transport vessels and whatnot. Transports actually starting in the 3000s range. I mean, heck, the heavy cruisers, yeah, 1700s. The Constellation was the earliest, so they had 1017. Destroyers was in the three digits range, starting at 500, going up to, but close to 600. Then you had your scout classes, which pretty much filled up the other end of the spectrum of the 500s. You got your transports, which starts in your 3000 range, or judging from what I can tell, the last quarter of the 3000 range, 3800, and the sequential crafts that they can actually tow across, including the Starfleet Transport Command pods. That actually has its own impulse and deflector dish, but it can't exactly go to warp because there's no warp nacelles. Then you got your dreadnoughts. Yeah, it starts in the 2000s, or I should say the 2100s. Yeah, USS Federation was NCC 2100. So, no. These are specific vessels. I mean, we even have the Daedalus class, which, poor thing, wasn't even put into the TV series, but we do know that it actually exists. So the Daedalus classes do exist. They have their own registries. It's just not in this book. So, this is a utility craft. Probably starting in 1500. In fact, I'm going to reaffirm that by Oh, I can't do that here. Annoying. Oh well. I can't do that here. Annoying. Anyways. So yeah. So this ship is actually pretty awesome on that. But I would have changed it to actually have the 1500 and whatever 2 digits left over would be it. But yeah. So there you go. Somehow it didn't want to move for me. I need a new mouse. Alrighty, so yeah, I mean, this is exactly it. You got all your stuff for it. I mean, it is a pretty cool ship, being awesome. So let's talk about the ship of what it can actually have. Yes, it is a Tier 1 vessel. It acts as your light cruiser in normal Star Trek Online. What do you mean? Simple. In Star Trek Online, you had your light cruiser, which is the Miranda-class starship. In this type, if you start out as a original series Star Trek character, you will be as a Pioneer-class starship. Although it doesn't really say Pioneer, it's Pioneer. How many decks does this thing have? Well, the bridge is deck 1. You have deck 2 pretty much right here, I would believe. Because deck 1 and deck 2 are almost right there. Yeah, here's deck 1. Here's the turbo shaft right here. The bridge dome. I mean, it keeps even the same bridge dome when you actually supposed to zoom in. It'll show the cutout of the bridge and whatnot. Same design over here, the domes. So you got your deck 1, then you got your hatchway to get into deck 2. Deck 3 is actually technically like over here roughly in this line, because that's where the mess hall is for the officers. So this is the officers mess hall and meeting room area. So this is technically down over here is deck 3. Deck 4 is on this line. Deck 5 is over here on this line. And then you have roughly about, I can guesstimate a couple decks down. So probably about, judging on appearances, about 2 more decks down. So, what did I say? This is 5. So probably 6 and 7. Then this is actually 2 decks right here. So 8 and 9. Yeah, 8 9's over here, because this is the Shuttle Bay right over here. You get to see all the awesome stuff. It is actually 2 decks, so it is that big. So deck 9 is Shuttle Bay. Deck 8 is the observation deck of the Shuttle Bay. Yeah, you can even see it over here under the cusp of the saucer. Then you got deck 10, which is over here, Then you got 11, 12, 13 right over here. Then 14, which includes the torpedo room. Well, technically with this spacing, I would say 13, 14 is this here, then 15. Then you got, I would say, about 5 decks on this one. I'm not sure. I can't really say for sure because this is not main engineering. Based on this, main engineering is probably going to be about deck 5 or so. If not, probably deck 6 or 7. But I'm guesstimating at this point. Right, so you probably don't want to hear about that. You're probably wondering, how does this thing work? Well, first and foremost, this ship works pretty well in combat. You have your standard things, but I would say just deal with what you get. I know that's pretty bad for me to say, but deal with what you get. Now, you have the torpedo tubes in the fashion of the Next Generations, or I should say the motion pictures, but more curvatured. This is a bit an interesting choice because based on its registry number, I would assume that you would still have a neck, but it wouldn't really need a neck. In fact, most designs would actually had just a singular deflector dish hanging off, probably about right over here. The torpedoes would have been about right over here. In fact, there would have been two. Up on the saucer, dorsal and ventral of the saucer, being able to shoot out and pretty much get your targets. So it would have had four. But this is a utility craft, so it doesn't have the same properties as a heavy cruiser. You have to understand, Next Generation onward, or should I say, the motion picture onward, implemented and pretty much enforced the torpedoes in the neck of the ship. That wasn't always the case. Torpedoes were actually in the saucer of the ship. Ventral and dorsal. Having it on a neck is interesting because technically for this ship, the deflector would have been moved up to here, having it hang out. This is the top, so the top would have been about right over here, the cusp of the top plating for the torpedo housing. So that would have been the top, jutting out, probably about right there. So yes, this is a creative liberty by the developers to do this. And you're going to see that with various other ships, such as the Ranger, the various other starships that the developers had actually made for the expansion. I mean, they're nice ships, but you can't really get a hold of them until much later. And even then, let me show you a quick preview of the things that you'll be dealing with. First and foremost, this is your lieutenant ranks. The Klingon War. Okay. Ages yesterday is your lieutenant junior grade up to your early lieutenant ranks. If you go by this route, you're not going to get the accelerated promotion. At least not as quickly. But you will be lieutenant commander by the time you do the Klingon War for the 25th century stuff. I know, there's still a lot. Now, I will say, because of the expansion, they have updated the models for the ships. But because of the C-Store being disabled, you can't get a hold of the Constitution class starship that's in the C-Store. So, sorry. So, the layout for your ship, having your two weapons in front and your beam array in the back, this is actually accurate of how you should have for this ship. Your torpedoes in the front, your beams, your forward beams, and your aft beams. Your aft beam is actually coming from here. You'd be surprised because there's actually, if I can find it, probably over here, or right around probably this dome, is actually a turret. This is a dome that conceals the, if it's not here, that's observation. This dome would have been it. This dome would have been it for the housing for the phaser turret that would have been able to shoot in the aft. Then you got your phasers in the forward. This ship is not that heavily armed, but it's armed enough where it can handle itself in combat and get out of there. These are not beam rails, people. They're not. These are shield emitters for the ship. Oh yeah, these are the shield emitters for the ship. You got your port, starboard, and forward shields for the dorsal. Or I could be very much wrong because I'm looking at this oddly, but yeah, extra bulk, hull reinforcements and whatnot. I mean, you can see it over here, distinctions in the lines, indicating these are actually separate decks. So yeah, you got your bottom decks. I mean, you still got decks all over the place. So, how does this thing run? I know this is going to be a question that will be asked. Well, this ship has a top speed, and you're going to hit it real quick, of warp 5. Well, technically you'd be going like warp 7 or warp 8. Nope, you're warp 5. Yep. That should have been an interesting thing because this ship should have actually had a engine that was capable of more than that, but I digress. But yeah, otherwise this ship is pretty awesome. You get your bridge officers who are of the original series. You got your human, you got your, well, he didn't look as good as he was, so yeah, you got your Tellarite, you got your Vulcan, your Andorian, and of course, your human again. Of course, she's in the new outfit because if you're able to see Earth space dock over there, that means it is there. Otherwise, you're dealing with a smaller version of that. Not kidding. So, weapons are pretty standard. On this particular ship, any weapons you put on there will be of the original series. But if they're paired phasers, that's where the difference is. Paired phasers gives you the retrofit or the original series blue lasers coming out of the ship. Any torpedoes put in here, such as this, it'll come out as blue or a white with a blue outline shooting outward, which is awesome. Now I'm gonna tell you guys that for the most part you're going to be dealing with things of interesting issues in this game. For example, you're going to be dealing with bugs and issues for the ship. So let's go ahead and take a look at many other things. I mean, I can't show you the beginning, but I probably can show you something. Well, I can't really show you guys because it's spoilers, but this is all the episodes we actually have. Or Explorer Earth Space Dock is your tutorial thing, going from when you are controlling the ship, even though you're not in command, in dealing with stuff, to dealing with the Cestus, in the shadow of Cestus, where on Cestus Prime, Kirk and the Gorn actually duked it out on each other there. Painful Omens. You go to Starbase K13. You go into the Council in Babel. You actually go back in time, actually on board the Enterprise, and see the events of Babel happening. Tangled Web deals with the Tholians, who, if you do not interfere, will actually cause a massive war, and deals with how the USS Defiant started to do its phasing thing. No, seriously, this is actually pretty cool. Then finally, the Battle of Caleb 4. This is an interesting point, and it leads into the the realization during season 3 of the original series, plus with the animated series, of how the Klingons got hold of cloaking technology, and why the Romulans, well, it's part of the whole thing, whatever. Basically, Battle of Caleb 4 was the reason of why such tensions and insistence of tachyon technology and tachyon nets were necessary for dealing with the Klingons, because Caleb 4 was a major turning point of the Federation. And I can't really play any of this because this is actually major spoilage, but I can show you that after playing it, you know, you can actually see... Okay, there's no bonus items, what the hell. You would... oops. Let me get out of there. That's not exactly what I had hoped to do. I mean, Babel, Tangled Webs... You get items for building up your ship and character, and then after that it's just simulations of playing the old missions again. So yeah, what's it like flying around with a ship? Well, first of which, the nacelles are white trails, and with red engines. This is actually pretty cool and standard. The ship actually flies around pretty well. It's not that hardy, I will admit that. Without actual necessary skill points, the ship is actually not that hardy. In fact, it gets taken out over a hard challenge pretty easily. Let me just do that so it flies around slowly. And yeah, let me put it there. Otherwise, this is just what I did, as this will work. I mainly focus on energy weapons because mostly I go for beam boats. But otherwise, yeah, this ship actually works pretty well. But let's go ahead and take a look on the inside. Let's see what this Starship actually looks like, including the bridge of a small craft. This is actually the Type F shuttlecraft you can actually be in. Uh-oh. I don't think the game was... the server was expecting me to pop into the interior of the original series Shuttlecraft. I don't think they actually put that in. Whoops. Okay, so right now the only thing that you can actually do for interiors right now is the standard classic, or the standard of the runabouts in the game. Hate to say it, but let's go ahead and head over to Earth Space Dock and pretty much see what's available for these old ships. Okay, so this is actually what you can actually do for the ship. The Shuttlecraft is a Type 1 material, and you can actually pick other materials for it, although it is actually pretty awkward of how they go about it. And you only get access to just what's available. Now let's take a look at the Starship. Unfortunately, when you actually get out of the normal Starship, you're no longer in the original series, but you can, well, you could, if it was available, you know, the original series bridge, which I think they should have kept it just specifically for the ships. Otherwise, it wouldn't be just a replica. But there is a unique material for it, and that is the material type 0 is unique for it, and window type 1 is also a pioneer template. No other styles available, but there is actually one specific paint for it. It is called Block 1. Block 1 is pretty cool, and you could go for all other types of colors. Like, let's say this bright red. Now the ship has bright red. It's actually pretty cool as part of the blocking. And I think that is actually pretty cool that they actually have that. Let's see if the second type actually has other colors. Let's go for blue, an obvious blue color. Well, oh yeah, there it is, just right on the yep, the torpedo housing it's blue right on the neck. Who knew? Yep. Otherwise, yeah, no real color changes to it. Otherwise, oh god, these colors. I don't know what I was thinking, but I think it's hilarious. But yeah, you can go for those colors. You know, reds are reds because it's part of the outlines. But I think it's still cool that you could pick these bizarre color choices, you know? I mean, you can go with this bright blue and see an actual difference it makes. It is pretty funny. But yes, Block 1 is the only thing available for these ships. As for paints, and I'm flipping this thing around. Otherwise, you could go for other types of patterns, but it's not going to make much of a difference except for a few things based on designs. Otherwise, no real difference. Now you can hear the original series clicking sounds and click clack and whatnot. That's all that there is to it. The Pioneer class is actually a unique ship, I would say, and since it's going to be available for everyone, I would suggest, you know, grabbing your hands on it. You know, give it a whirl, give it a test spin, and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that, you know, I mean, if I were to go to the interior right now for the Starship, I'll probably see that it's part of the Origins and not the original series bridge. Which is a shame, you know, because that would have been cool if we were able to keep that. But I think, you know, the devs are able to make that happen, and it'll be as specific and unique for that ship. But it is an interesting little thing to actually have, you know. From the original series, you get all the clicks and sounds and whatnot, and be pretty cool. Even though on the Triple server, you're going to have server issues, you're going to have certain issues that's going to be unique for it. Yeah, you only get the Origin bridge. Which is, you know, a shame. You only get the Origin bridge. Which I would say this is actually pretty cool looking. Oh well. But yeah, I kind of do wish, you know, we actually kept the bridge because that would have been awesome. But oh well, that's just me digressing and just kind of complaining. But yeah, I mean, that's it. There's not much about this ship to really divulge, except it's a neat little ship. And if I was going to say, is this ship really worth the effort for it? I would say no. It's not worth the price if there is a price for this particular ship, if there is one. And I would say, yeah, it's a nice little freebie, but expansion for just a few extra episodes and ability to create an original series character is nice and all, but definitely not worth the okay, it is worth it, but it's just me expecting a lot more than what was there. So yeah, it's me complaining. What do you expect? But I will say that you do get specific stuff for the character. I don't know what specific it is, as I don't see any particular skills for the whole thing. I don't see any skills for Starship or any other things. You know, I don't really see a difference, and if there is, I'm blind as a bat. I mean, reputations, trait levels, whatnot. I mean, there's no real difference to this thing than what I was seeing earlier. Even though you get the schematics and layout of your HUD of the original series. In fact, now I'm curious. Let's take a look at color palette. Yeah, 23rd Century Federation. This is where you get your thing. Otherwise, default is default. yeah, I'm still getting the clicky classic. Otherwise, default for your character, and especially default for the ship I'm actually in. But unfortunately, that's about it for this particular ship. I mean, it is a quick thing. I have talked a little bit, but it's quick, it's easy, but I hate to say it, it's cool being able to play in the old series, and it is actually what we've been asking. But I don't know, it just kind of feels lackluster. But then again, this game is not known for its awesomeness. Well, okay, yes it is, but it's just me having a very high expectation. But otherwise, it is a fun little ship. But that's about it. You're all the end of 23rd century for about your first 10 levels, and that's it. So I hope you liked this little little notes and information about the upcoming Agents of Yesterday. So I hoped you actually liked this episode of, well, this very special episode of so I hoped you guys liked this episode of Star Trek Ships of the Line. This very special episode of yesterday's, Agents of Yesterday. If you actually do like this video, go ahead and leave a like. And leave out any suggestions in the comments down below. I would love to hear about them and read about them. And as always, thank you for watching. And I hope I see you guys next time.